So all of a sudden, the building next to the sneaker store where my mother been buying my sneakers for over 10 years has a red, black, and green flag painted on it, right? With a picture of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey in the window. So I'm like, what is this place? Red, black, and green, Marcus Garvey, right next to the place I've been buying sneakers since I was in the 4th grade at 10. Now I'm a 23-year-old college graduate, 13 years of sneakers. I keep going to this place and it's always locked. It's always closed. I'm knocking on the door. I'm ringing the bell. I'm leaving notes because I'm like, what is this? This is some type of black consciousness. What is this place? And they just painted it, so I knew that the people were still there. So one day I go, and an elder walks around the corner up 16th Street. He comes around the corner from 16th Street up to Cecil B. Moore. His name was Johnny Gossett. He just passed away. Elder Gossett, rest in peace. He says, can I help you? I said, well, you got a picture of Garvey. You got a red, black, and green flag. This is my neighborhood. I've never seen this building before. And I've been buying sneakers next door from y'all since I was a baby. What is this? He says, this is the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. Now, I didn't know the name of the Garvey movement, you understand? He said, this is the UNIA, and we've been here since the 40s or the 60s. And I said, I've never seen no red, black, and green on this building before. I've been buying sneakers. He said, that's because, we never painted it. So he said, come back Sunday at 3 o'clock. I told him who I was, graduated from Millersville, Black Student Union. I was leading the Black Power, all that, He said, come back Sunday at 3 o'clock. And for those of y'all who know Garvey's history, Marcus Garvey been holding meetings for the UNIA every Sunday at 3 o'clock since he started the organization in Jamaica 1914, right? And the UNIA still meets at 3 o'clock every Sunday for over 100 years now, right? So I come in and I meet all the elders. Everybody's older. They're old enough to be my father. They're old enough to be my grandfather. And they say this is the Garvey movement. And I'm like, I need to study more about Marcus Garvey. I mean, I knew who he was, but I didn't know who he was. So I'm coming every Sunday. I graduated every Sunday. I'm coming to the meetings. I joined up, got my membership card. 23-year-old Umar Johnson is now officially a member of the UNIA. So I'm working as a TSS worker. I get accepted to Hahnemann University to start my master's in psychology. But Hahnemann University wanted like $20,000 a year. I said, damn, that's a lot of money. I said, you know what? I was Black Student Union president. I was president of the Student Senate. I was on the president advisory board. I wrote for the paper. I was a pretty well-known student leader. I said, maybe I should go back to Millersville because I can probably get a graduate assistantship that'll pay for my college, pay for my master's program, right? So I tell Hahnemann I'm leaving. I'm the only black guy in the master's program. So the white director comes to me and he says, if we find you some scholarship money, will you stay? If we find you some scholarship money, will you stay? And I said, well, probably not, because if I can get a graduate assistantship at Millersville University for free, there will be no need for me to stay. So he says, if you're going to go back to Millersville, you might want to look into school psychology. Now, I had never known much about school psychology. I was always clinical. I always wanted to get my doctorate in clinical psychology since I was in 3rd grade. But he said school psych. But before he said that, I was already considering the school psychology program at Millersville University because it was interesting. When I was going through the graduate brochure of Millersville University, they had a dual master's where you get your certification to be a teacher and you get your certification to be a school psychologist. So I was going to do it anyway. But the white guy said, listen, if you don't get your school psych cert, even when you get your doctorate, you cannot test for special ed. And he said, I don't have my special ed cert. Even though I'm a licensed psychologist, I can't do special ed work. Okay, so he said, make sure you get it. So I pretty much made up my mind. I go back to Millersville. Okay, so I'm home. I started my master's program in January of 98. I graduated May of 97, so that's June, July, August, September, October, November, December. 8 months, I'm going to the UNIA. I'm going to the study group. I'm getting my Garvey on. Intense. I'm getting my Garvey on. I go back to Millersville to get my school psychology cert, my master's degree, my first master's. And of course, I know y'all Negroes say I ain't got no degrees, but anyway. So while I'm at Millersville, I'm still coming home for the weekend working on my master's, and I'm still going to the Garvey meetings, right? As many as I could. I graduate with my master's 2 days before my 25th birthday, August the 19th of 2000. Now, this is interesting that I graduate Y2K. So Y2K was really the birth of Papa. Y2K was really the birth of Papa. It wasn't the birth of me on the conscious scene, but it was the birth of me as a revolutionary black school psychologist. Because after I graduated from Millersville with my first master's degree, undergrad, I had 2 degrees, psychology and political science, so I had 3 degrees at this time. I go back and I do my internship with the School District of Philadelphia for 1 year. I'm back in Philly, and I'm getting my Garvey on, getting my Garvey on. I get certified to be a school psychologist in 2000, okay, going into 2001, and I'll never forget this. After I did my internship, we had to take a test to get hired. You had to take a test to become a school psychologist. So I took the test, and I came in first place. I came in first place my year that I finished my intern, and I applied to be a school psychologist with the School District of Philadelphia, and I became the youngest of only 5. I became the youngest of only 5 African-American male school psychologists in the 5th largest school district in America, the School District of Philadelphia. So I was the baby, but I was a hell-raising baby, because all during my internship, I'm being asked to evaluate black children who don't have nothing wrong with them. And I'm like, Millersville University trained me well. Okay, it was a National Association of School Psychologists program. I became a nationally certified school psychologist, a credential that I voluntarily gave up a couple years ago because I didn't feel the National Association of School Psychologists was doing anything to fight back against the overdiagnosis of black boys with ADHD, learning disabilities, and the overplacement of black boys in special ed. And since it was only a professional organization anyway, basically you make money, they make money. You basically pay. If you belong to a professional organization, you pay. So I'm giving my money, couple $100 a year, to the National Association of School Psychologists, and you guys aren't doing nothing to protect black boys. I said, I'm giving it up. Now, of course, later down the road, some of you, my haters, would contact the National Association of School Psychologists to find out if I really was a school psychologist. And of course, they told you that I was, but they also told you that I was no longer nationally certified. But what you hating ass idiots didn't ask was whether or not I voluntarily gave up my credential or whether it was taken. Okay, I voluntarily gave up my credential. In fact, I still get mail from the National Association asking me to rejoin. And I'm not going to rejoin until they start doing something to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline. But of course, you jackasses, and I'm only talking to the haters, you jackasses who don't know diddly squat about psychology, running around calling up white folks on me because your ass is jealous and don't know what the hell you talking about. But anyway, getting back on task, I get hired by the School District of Philadelphia after my intern year. I get a phone call, right? You're hired. Come down to the school district central office tomorrow to come get your testing equipment. So, as a school psychologist, we got to get our testing equipment, IQ tests, achievement tests, emotional tests, psychological tests, visual motor tests. So Umar Johnson is a brand new school. I got my first real job. My first real job was to be a school psychologist for the School District of Philadelphia. So I get down to the headquarters. Listen to this, y'all. Listen to this. This is significant. I get downtown Philadelphia to pick up my school psychologist paperwork, and everybody's running around like it's a war going on. And guess what day it was? My first day to report for work was September 11th, 2001. My first day to report to work to pick up my psychological assessment tools was 9/11/2001. I get down to the school district, and the school psychologist supervisor, I said, I come to get my test equipment. Guess what he said? He said, you weren't about test equipment. You better pick up a gun. I said, pick up a gun? What the hell is going on? So I rush into the office, and everybody got their TV on, and you know what's on TV, right? The Twin Towers. That morning, the first plane hit the one tower, and then the other plane hit the other tower, and I find it to be more than coincidental. I find it to be more than coincidental that the first day of work for who would become arguably the most important black school psychologist in American history, I'm going to say it. I'm not saying it out of arrogance. I'm saying it out of truthfulness. I find it to be more than a coincidence that on the first day of work for who would become the most critical black school psychologist in American history, his first day of work is the same day that the Twin Towers of New York City dropped. Facts. And when I look back at that being my first day of work, I look at it symbolically. First of all, I want to say rest in peace to everyone who lost their life, black or white, okay? And my heart goes out to all of you who lost relatives in that situation, okay? I am of the opinion that that was an inside job. I do not believe it had anything to do with no Arabs or terrorists. That was the United States government who killed its own people and plundered its own towers to justify going into Afghanistan to stop the Taliban from burning up the poppy seed. Afghanistan is the #1 opium-producing nation on the planet. Afghanistan makes more opium than any other country. The Taliban burned the crops, and the United States government need to justify getting in there to replant the poppy seed and to get that oil. So they dropped the Twin Towers so they can go in there. Facts. They even had their own commission report that you can buy at any Barnes & Noble book that clearly showed that they had foreknowledge of what was going to happen. In fact, I'm probably going to have to do a Facebook seminar on 9/11. I don't really like to get into it too much because I know for people who lost people they loved, it's too much to stomach for them to believe that their own government killed them. It's too much to stomach to believe that their own government killed them. So be that as it may, for Umar Johnson, the Twin Towers were symbolic. For Umar Johnson to begin his first day of work on the day that the Twin Towers dropped, for me, the first tower was the Tower of Special Education. And for me, the second tower was ADHD. For me, the first tower was special education. And for me, the second tower was ADHD. In other words, symbolically, I believe the ancestors set me up to work, first day of work on 9/11, because I was being sent by my ancestors to drop the Twin Towers of special education and ADHD. Call me crazy, call me psychotic, call me delusional, but I really believe that that was symbolic, that this man is being sent by his ancestors to drop the Twin Towers of special ed and ADHD and to destroy the school-to-prison pipeline. So again, I'm getting my Garvey on, I'm getting my Garvey on, I'm getting my Garvey on. So And now I'm about to tell y'all how my public speaking career began. How my public speaking career began. Remember I said earlier, I'm the youngest member of the UNIA in Philadelphia. I'm the only youth. Everybody's old enough to be my father and grandfather. In fact, I have to credit those old men, most of whom are now ancestors, for feeding me so much wisdom. Because I believe the wisdom that those Garveyite elders gave me is partly responsible for why I am where I am globally in the Black consciousness movement. Because I learned firsthand from men who were born in the 20s. I was learning firsthand from men who was born in the 30s. I was learning from men who saw Marcus Garvey. I was learning from men who met Dr. King. I was learning from men who knew Malcolm. I was getting all this information. It was like a re-education. It was like a re-education. So I'm getting my Garvey on, right? And because the meetings in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia UNIA were not well organized, and I don't say that as a slight, I say it as the truth. The meetings were not well organized. So the elders would always ask me at the end of the Sunday meeting, young blood, they called me young blood, right? Young blood, I'm 25, young blood. Get on up there and tell people, you know, talk to them about what's happening with our kids in the school system. Okay? So they made me stand up and talk. And I never knew I was no great orator or nothing like that. I would stand up and I would say, hey, I'm Umar Johnson. I'm a school psychologist here in the city, the school district of Philadelphia. I work at Vaux Middle School, Wanamaker Middle School. I'm also the school psychologist for Bodine down in 4th and Girard. I do work at William Penn High School. The school psychologist is someone who evaluates kids, da-da-da-da-da. All y'all done heard that a million times, okay? Okay, I say that at my lectures. And so I'm just breaking down special ed. I'm breaking down the learning disability. I'm breaking down ADHD. I'm breaking down autism. I'm not thinking nothing special. So then all of a sudden, people would come to the Garvey meetings and they would say, would you mind coming to my church? Would you mind speaking at my Kwanzaa event? Would you mind coming to our community center? Would you mind talking to a group of, would you mind coming to our juvenile delinquency center and talking to our boys? They could see a young man with his master's degree. So my public career was started in the Garvey movement. I am a child. I'm a true child of Marcus Garvey. Malcolm X was a true child of Marcus Garvey because Malcolm X was raised in the UNIA. Umar Johnson, although I didn't join until I was 23, I would say that I was raised in the UNIA. If it was not for the Garvey movement, you might not know me today because it was the Garvey movement. It was the red, black, and green that gave me my platform to begin speaking. My first out-of-town events was for the UNIA. They flew me to Atlanta to speak for the Atlanta UNIA, and I'll never forget it because when I spoke, Elder Mwali Mubaruti came to hear me. Elder Mwali Mubaruti in Atlanta came to hear me when the Atlanta UNIA brought me down to speak. Okay? And then they flew me to North Carolina to speak for the Durham, North Carolina UNIA. We spoke at North Carolina Central. So that was my first college speech ever, was for the UNIA at North Carolina Central. We had a regional conference, and I spoke with Renoko Rashidi and Tony Martin. And I'll never forget Renoko. Shout out to Renoko, Garveyite master teacher. In fact, I need Renoko to get with me because I think I want to bring Renoko on some of my lectures. I think I want to bring Renoko Rashidi on some of my lectures because he doesn't really get the props that he's entitled to. And plus, he's a master teacher and he's a Garveyite like me. So check this out. And Tony Martin is the author of Race First. Tony Martin republished The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. Tony Martin has written more books on Marcus Garvey than any other Garvey scholar. So you got Umar Johnson, the baby. You got Renoko, the accomplished scholar. You got Tony Martin, the official scholar for the Garvey movement, right? So we on the back of the Garvey newspaper and the Garvey's voice and everybody like, you moving up, young blood. They say, young blood, you about to take the stage with some major people. So I'm like, okay, this is my chance to shine. This is my chance. North Carolina Central. And I got up there and I tore it down. And when we were done, we went to the restaurant to eat. And Tony Martin, rest in peace, because he passed away he just stood staring at me. True story, y'all. Tony Martin, the Garvey scholar who wrote Race First, which is a book that all of y'all need to read. I think it's the best book written on the history of the Garvey movement other than Garvey and Garveyism, written by Queen Mother Amy Jakes Garvey, rest in peace. So Tony Martin is staring. And you know what I'm saying to myself as I'm sitting there? He wasn't staring with negativity. He was staring with shock. He never heard of me ever in his life. First time Tony Martin, the official scholar for the Garvey movement, historian for the Garvey, ever seen Umar Johnson was on stage at North Carolina Central, right? And I was the last person to speak. Tony Martin is looking at me with his eyes wide open. And I'm saying to myself, this man is in awe because you remind him so much of Marcus Garvey. He is looking because he sees in you the potential to do what Garvey do. I don't know if that's what he felt, brothers and sisters. I don't know if that's what he's felt. But you ever see somebody just drop their mouth wide open like you have no idea who you are? That's the look he gave me. You have no idea who you are. And then Renoko comes over, right? Renoko don't know me either. I mean, he's heard of me, you know, but he don't know me that well. And he's never seen me speak. And I'll never forget this. And I don't even know if Renoko remembers this. Elder Renoko remembers this. Renoko walked over to me. And I don't know if you remember this, Renoko. You looked over at me and you said, what did you say? You said, remember me when you get famous. Renoko Rashidi said, Renoko said something about you're going to be famous. And don't forget us little people, or remember me when you become famous. And basically, I took that to mean, to have Renoko Rashidi say that to me, I took that to mean that he was basically, to some extent, giving me an anointing. But anyway, I was still local Umar Johnson. You know, I was known in Philly. I was known throughout the UNIA. So they flew me to Atlanta. They flew me to North Carolina. And then we drove to New York. I spoke at the UNIA in Brooklyn or Harlem. But it was only for UNIA people. It wasn't public. Okay? So basically, I was just a local Pennsylvania school psychologist, right? And that went on from 2000 all the way to 2010. So we're about to jump 10 years. Y'all ready for the jump? Because now I'm about to bring y'all into where we are now. So it's 2010. Wait, I got to back up. I go to Africa in 2005. I go to Africa for the first time. I become Minister of Education in 2004. I get appointed Minister of Education for the entire UNIA 2004. I go to Africa in 2005. Why does Dr. Umar Johnson go to Africa? Because we were at a Marcus Garvey exoneration program at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. Julius Garvey was there, Marcus Garvey's son. We met for the first time. The UNIA was trying to do what? Exonerate Marcus Garvey's name from those trumped-up charges that J. Edgar Hoover put on the greatest black leader of the 20th century. And we had a program at the African American Museum in Philadelphia in order to fight to get Garvey exonerated, right? Julius Garvey speaks, other leaders speak, and then I speak. In fact, I was the moderator. And Julius Garvey comes over to me, the son of Marcus Garvey, and he says, you remind me of Malcolm X. You are so much Malcolm X. This is what Julius Garvey tells me. And then I look up at Dr. Julius Garvey, and I say, I'm disappointed because I don't just want to remind you of Malcolm X. I want to remind you of your daddy, Marcus Garvey. Why don't I remind you of you? And Julius Garvey says, well, you got to remember something, Umar. I was a young man when my father died. So I really, didn't get a chance to see him speak on the platform as often as I got a chance to see Malcolm X, because me and Malcolm X would be about the same age. So he says, don't take offense. It's just that Malcolm is who I really got to see mature, and my father passed away when I was still a young man. So we laughed it off. But anyway, a brother by the name of Nnamdi Azikiwe from the Washington, D.C. UNIA. Nnamdi Azikiwe comes over and he says, they need you in Africa, brother. He said, they need you in Africa, brother. And then also Dr. Temple University, Malefi Asante was there. Dr. Malefi Asante also spoke with Julius Garvey and myself at the Marcus Garvey Exoneration Program in Philly. This is 04. This is 04. So it's Julius, it is Malefi, and it's the young prince. But I'm not the prince of Pan-Africanism yet. I'm on my way. I'm still local. New York ain't heard of me yet. Chicago ain't heard of me yet. Detroit ain't heard of me yet. Africa hasn't heard of me yet. Jamaica hasn't heard of me yet. China, Japan, England, Canada, they don't know about me yet. Okay? So then anyway, Nnamdi Azikiwe says, they need you in Africa. I said, I'm ready, brother. I'm ready to go to Africa. He said, we got UNIA chapters in Africa who feel that they're not being given the attention that they deserve. And he said, you are Minister of Education. You should use your Ministry of Education to go to Africa and build. And I say, that's what I'm going to do. So Nnamdi Azikiwe gave me the number of a travel agent, Kia Travel. Some of y'all who live in Washington, D.C., you might be familiar with Kia Travel, K-I-A. They're Ethiopians. So I called Kia Travel and I said, I need to go to South Africa. I need to go to Nigeria. I need to go to Senegal, right? Now, Kia Travel said, would you mind being in Ethiopia for a couple days? I said, sure. Because the Rasta brothers was in Ethiopia, and the Rasta brothers told me that I need to go to Shashamani. Shout out to my Rastas, my Naya Bengi Rastas, my 12 Tribe Rastas, my EWF Rastas, and shout out to my Bobo Shanti Rastafari. Freedom, redemption, international repatriation. So my mother think I'm crazy, right? My family think I'm crazy because I come home and I tell them that I'm going to Africa for 30 days and 30 nights by myself. They said, what? Mind you, I'm 29 years old. I said, I'm going to Africa for the first time by myself because nobody else can go for 30 days and 30 nights. And since I'm a psychologist with the School District of Philadelphia, I get the summers off, right? I get the summers off. So I'm going. We got a Garvey chapter in South Africa, Johannesburg. We got a Garvey chapter in Dakar, Senegal. And we got several Garvey chapters in Nigeria. And I'm going over there to let them know that we need them because nobody else is doing it. I'm the only young person on the parent body of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and I'm going to take it upon my responsibility to go and spread the Garvey message. So they scared. I go and get my yellow fever shot. I do all that. I pay for my ticket, okay, and it's time to go. I went to Africa on July the 1st, and I got back August the 2nd, I believe it was. I was in Ethiopia for a week, South Africa for a week, Senegal for a week, Nigeria. So I did Ethiopia, South Africa. My luggage, I had to wear the same clothes for almost a whole week in South Africa because Homeland Security, this I know the government been watching me for a long time. Homeland Security took my luggage and shipped it to Germany somewhere. And they went through my luggage. And it took me a week to get my luggage. And I know they was wondering what I was doing because I had a whole bunch of red, black, and green flags and Garvey books. I know they like, you know, he got an Arabic name, Umar Abdullah Johnson, but he got a suitcase full of red, black, and green flags. Is he going to Africa to start a revolution? So anyway, I finally get my luggage. Then I go to Nigeria. I love Nigeria. I loved all the countries. When I first got to Ethiopia, when I landed in Africa for the first time, I land in Ethiopia. That was powerful. My first time I set foot on African soil, it was in the cradle of civilization. And when I stayed in Ethiopia, I stayed at the Hotel Gihan. I stayed at Hotel Gihan, which was built by His Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. So I'm in Ethiopia. I'm a little scared because I'm in Africa for the first time. I'm by myself. It's dark outside. I don't know what the CIA and the FBI are up to. So then I order some food, right? And I never forget this. It almost made me cry. The brother who brought my food walks in. And I really believe, brothers and sisters, that a spirit was in that brother, because when he walked in my room, he was so humble. He was so humble. He said, "Welcome to Africa, my brother. Here is your food. If there's anything I can do to help you or to help make your stay." And I'm trying to remember what he said. And I cried. I cried because here I am in Africa. Wait a minute, because I ain't going to cry again. Hold on. Okay. Woo. All right, I'm back. Woo. right, let me try to get through this. All right. I'm going to skip that. I got to skip that. So, my last week in Africa, okay, we good. We good. Okay. My last week, I'm in Senegal. We go to Senegal. So I did Ethiopia. I did South Africa. I did Nigeria. We get to Senegal, right? Senegal is the last stop. It's the last week. I say, I want to go to Goree Island because I've never been to the slave dungeon. So I say I want to go to Goree Island. So the brother, my host, I forget his name. What was the brother's name? I forget his name. So he takes me to Goree Island. So I say to myself, mind you, I was raised Sunni Orthodox Muslim. My mother's people Christian, my father raised us Muslim. So we get to Goree Island and we're going through the dungeons. Goree Island, Senegal, we're going through the dungeons. And you know you got to take a boat to get out to Goree Island. So I had some water, right? Got a little cup, but I had a bottle. I had a bottle of water. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm in Africa for the first time. I'm going to pour me some libations to my ancestors. That's what I said. I said, I'm in Africa for the first time. I'm going to pour me some libations to my ancestors. So I walk into the female slave dungeon. And what I'm telling y'all now is very personal because I believe everything that I've become and everything that I continue to evolve to started in that female slave dungeon in Goree Island. I believe that with my whole heart. I believe everything started that last week of July 2005. So I take my bottle of water, I get down on one knee, and I start pouring libation. And I basically, when I poured the libation, I would say like a little prayer to the ancestors, right? First time. I never did this in my life, okay? All I knew was 5 salats, you got me, a day. But I said, I'm going to do this. Something is making me call on my aunt. I'm going to do this. Okay? And of course, Senegal is a Muslim country too, so I basically asked my ancestors to put me in a position. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words. That was 12 years ago. But I basically asked my ancestors to put me in a position